Hello, Cherry Chase. My name is Stephanie, and I am going to be your guide leading you through Spark, the art program, the new art program that is PTA funded and parent led. I'm going to be your leading you through the Year 1 Lesson 2 training. So first of all, thank you so much for becoming a docent or an art helper. This program cannot exist without you, so thank you so much for doing that. I'm going to dive right in so that hopefully we can get this done in even just a few minutes. The first thing I'm going to do is show you the slides here on my screen, but I know it's really small, so I'm also going to drop a link where you can find these slides and you can look at it at your computer while you're listening to me talking and going through them. So hopefully that will work. One quick note, this is the first time I've tried recording a training, so bear with me if if we have any technical difficulties or things go too long, or if you have ideas on how to make this better, please let me know. You can drop me an email, that'd be great. So you are here for lesson 2. Lesson 2 is called Your Face, Your Story. And we're basically focusing on having, first of all, focusing on 2 artists who made self-portraits, and then we're going to allow children to make their own self-portrait. That's the intent of this lesson. Within this lesson, we're going to be talking about shapes, as in geometric shapes like circles, squares, rhombuses, those types of shapes, or more mathematical shapes, or also organic forms. So that would be something that doesn't maybe have a name, right? So a wobbly shape with lots of wiggly sides or something like that. We'll get more into showing visuals on that in a few slides. So the 2 artists we're going to focus on and I hope you can see this. Let me try to make it a little bit bigger. Faith Ringgold is the first artist. And on this 3rd slide in, you can see a nice big portrait that she made of herself. And this portrait was made in 2023, so not very long ago. If we go, let me go back. When we put this slide up on the computer for the children to look at, what we're really trying to do is start a discussion and start some critical thinking about the art. That is why art is so cool, because anyone can look at any piece of art and they bring their own imagination and stories and their own analysis to the table. So that's what we're trying to get at when we ask children to look at this piece, and maybe we tell like the name and when it was made, just a few little details, and we say, and mostly we say, what do you see? And we just let that question sit, and children will raise their hand. They might see, well, I see, that this lady's wearing a pearl necklace or something like that. And you can say, oh yeah, I see that too. That's really interesting. What else do you see? And just kind of reiterate what they said, right? Active listening here. So saying what they said maybe in a slightly different way, but mostly, and so the whole class hears it, because oftentimes their voices are very small in a big group setting. So I always like to say what they said again, but louder, so everyone can catch it. And then once you talk about this art, and they can come up with anything, there's no wrong answer here. We really just want them to look at the piece without someone telling them, like, this is why it's important, or this is what you should be looking for, or here's how to understand this. Like, we just want children to do that on their own without us giving them the answers. So once you've done that for a few minutes, you can move on. We're looking at, for these first 2 artists, we're looking at spending no more than about 10 to 15 minutes, because we want to leave a bulk amount of the time for children to make their own art. When we did the first lesson, one of the big pieces of feedback we got was that it almost seemed like no matter how much time you left for children to make their own art, they still exceeded that time, or could have exceeded that time if they were allowed to. So we recommend now no more than 2 artists and 10 to 15 minutes. The next slide here is all about Faith Ringgold, and it has her picture and then against with her portrait there, so you can kind of compare and contrast. Children can compare and contrast. I don't want to read all the things on the slide, but basically she was born in Harlem in New York City back in the 30s. And what's interesting about, I did include a quote here from her because I'll be honest, I thought too, like, Harlem in the 30s, whoa, that must have been really rough. Her family must have been maybe struggling or poor or something like that. And there's a quote from her saying, just because I lived in the 30s in Harlem does not mean that I grew up poor. In fact, it's the opposite. She always felt very supported by her family. It's not about the money you have, it's about the family support you have. So I think that's wonderful to point that out. And then her mother was a fashion designer and her father was a truck driver and a storyteller. So again, I loved that you don't have to be one or the other, right? You could be a lot of different things that don't necessarily always, they're not thought of as going together. The last 2 points are about how she was a painter, an author, a mixed media sculptor. She did a lot of things, performance art, and also an activist. And the last point that we put on here was how in her life, she had asthma as a young child, and that caused her to spend a lot of time inside the house because the city was pretty not good for her asthma. And so she had to stay inside with her mother, who would give her scraps of fabric, and she would use those little bits and pieces of scraps of fabric to create amazing artwork out of these little tiny pieces that she all either sewed together or I think she also glued them onto paper too. So you can read all that, but that's what we're going to cover, and we're going to cover it very quickly so we don't lose the children. Oops, there it is. Okay. The second artist you are going to talk about with the children is Henri Matisse. Now, Henri Matisse, if you were French. This is his painting called Icarus. It was done in 1946. So Matisse is a little bit older, just by a little bit, than Faith Ringgold. For this particular painting, you can see it's not a self-portrait exactly, it's not a face, but it's an entire body portrait. And I wanted to include this specifically so children could see that they can make either a face if they want to, or they can make a whole body as their self-portrait, and that's completely perfectly acceptable. They are the artists already, so whatever they make for their art is their art, and that is valid. We've thrown up a couple questions you can start a discussion with for this particular painting. What do you think? And what do you feel? Art is not only about the critical analysis of how an artist used the paint or how the artist used a medium, but it's so much of art, of the importance of art, is what the meaning of the piece was for the artists themselves. So we're trying to get at that, like, what does this make you feel, and why is that important, right? And when you create art, what do you want the viewer to feel, or what does it make you feel? That's the piece we're trying to get across. So again, you can have that class discussion, really letting them do the majority of the talking. And when you feel like you've had a little class discussion time, we're going to move on to talking about Henri Matisse. He was born in 1869. He lived till 1954, so that really wasn't that long ago. Matisse lived and worked in France, but he moved all around France. He painted in bold, distorted images, and an art critic, this is my favorite story about him. An art critic, Charlie, can you give me like 5 minutes? I'm doing a video. This is my son, Charlie. He's in 4th grade at Cherry Chase. Do you want to say hi real briefly? But I can talk in a minute. There he is. Sorry, Charlie. So, where was I? Oh, my favorite story about Matisse is that an art critic there was an art critic who didn't like his art and said that it and not only his, but some other people who painted in the same style, they called them wild beasts or favres. And I'm probably saying that terribly wrong, but that criticism of calling them wild beasts actually became Scout. Stop it, buddy. That's my dog Scout. Sorry. Became the style, the new style of art, and that's what they called it. So this style of art is called Fauve, or Fauvism, and it emphasizes painterly qualities and strong color over realistic images. So when we look at this painting, it's not very realistic of a human body. There are definitely forms that suggest human body. Like if you just did a glance, you'd think, human body. But it's not photorealistic at all. And that's the point of this art style, was to be different like that. So when children are making their pieces, they can try to be realistic if they'd like to be, but they don't have to be. In fact, we're giving them materials that are probably going to be very difficult to be photorealistic in for their projects, which we'll get to in a little bit. Okay, my second favorite story about Matisse is that, and you'll see this in this picture down here if you look on your screens, when he got older, he became very ill, but he still wanted to create art. So this is a picture of him laying in a bed at his house, and he's gone ahead and taken like a piece of charcoal, and he's taped it to a big old pole, and he's drawing with the pole on his walls and on any piece of paper or canvas that he can get within his bed, near his bed. So I love this because to me it speaks of when this urge to create, right? That we as artists, no matter if you think you're a good artist or not, you are an artist, and inside of you there probably is some urge to create something. It might be paintings, it might be something else, but everybody is capable of being a maker. And I think that's a wonderful thing. And for him, like, even illness could not stop him from making his art. Oh, sorry, I have to turn this because I can't see where my little, there it is. Okay. The next slide we're going to talk about is less of the how do you feel and critical analysis of the art, and more about the shapes, like we were talking about in the beginning. So this is more of the art theory behind this lesson. We want children to walk away understanding that there are two shapes in art. There are geometric shapes and there are free form or organic shapes. This slide does a pretty good job of describing organic shapes. You can kind of see they like, here's a bird, an outline of a foot, an outline of a blob, and a tree. These are shapes that we can recognize as a silhouette of a shape that we recognize, but it doesn't, it's not a geometric shape like these are, rectangle and triangle and circle, and is that one a rhombus or trapezoid? I can't remember, but we'll figure that out later. So, and underneath each of these, it has the description of what makes these a shape. So for example, organic or free-form shapes are shapes that seem to follow no rules. Organic shapes generally do not have a name associated with them and are typically not man-made. Organic shapes can resemble things that we find in nature, like I was saying, a tree or something. Whereas geometric shapes or regular shapes are easy to recognize. Usually, math can be used to find information about these shapes. Geometric shapes generally have a specific name associated with them. Examples are, and it's a trapezoid. There it is. I just couldn't remember off the top of my head. But like circle, triangle, rectangle, and trapezoid. Okay, and moving along. So we're just going to spend like a moment on that. Try not to spend very long on that because there's another slide that's more fun. So in this slide, it's talking about, we really want to test their knowledge on free-form organic shapes versus geometric shapes. So I don't have it on me right here, but you are going to have shapes cut out. They'll be like we just saw. a triangle or a circle, or maybe like the outline of a tree or something, and they'll be on the art carts, and you will hold them up and you will say, okay guys, tell me, is this organic or is this geometric? And if it's a geometric shape, what is that shape's name? And that's where we can once again go over things like trapezoid and rhombus and things like the more unusual shaped names. So that's going to be a game that you play. Really only spend like, again, a couple minutes max on all of this stuff. Each of these slides is like a couple minutes max, so that we really, like I said, just to reiterate, 10 to 15 minutes of playing the game, talking about the artist, and then the rest of the time we want children with actual making art. So here comes the fun part. After we've talked about the artist, after we've played that very quick game and gone over the shapes, we're going to talk about what art we're going to make today. Now, while you're doing all that talking as the docent, hopefully your art helper has been kind of getting all the tables ready. So each child will need a piece of newsprint at their desk, so that we have we have glue for this project and scissors and lots of colored paper. What we want to make sure that glue doesn't get all over the desk, hence the newsprint to kind of buffer, like protect the desk from the glue. Each child will be given a piece of white paper, and they will be given lots of different colored papers and some pre-cut out shapes that they can work with to then make their own self-portrait. For most children, I think once they understand the assignment of making a self-portrait, the rest is really up to them. It can look a number of different ways. So it's kind of hard to see here, but we've got an example here where a child has actually used the paper, the colored paper, to be their face and be their mouth and be their eyes. Completely great, wonderful. We have another example, and I know it's hard to see, but I would recommend clicking the slide deck and looking at it in a bigger format. This one, they've gone ahead, this child is probably a younger child, and instead of using the paper itself to be the shapes, this child has cut out interesting wiggly freeform shapes with the colored paper. They've glued it all down onto their paper, and then they've gone ahead and drawn their self-portrait on top of it in just like bold lines. So we'll also pop some Sharpies on the cart for any child who might want to use some Sharpies to make those bold lines. Down here you can see a picture of a child who's using the colored paper to make their entire body. So it doesn't have to be just the head. Oh, it can also be like it's a bit stick figure-ish, where they've got like strips for the arms, strips for the legs, a big rectangle for the body, and like maybe a circle or a squarish kind of shape for the head. That's completely fine too. There are no wrong answers. If somebody goes way off into a different idea, that's great. Perfect. You want to do, I don't even know what, anime shapes? Great. Have at it. But the point is that children get to make their own art the way that they want to. Each child, so this slide, what it says is what we're going to do today. Number one, cut out paper shapes to make your self-portrait. So again, you've provided the paper, you've made sure that they have everything they need from the art cart. Two, you can draw on top of it the shapes or use the shapes to make your self-portrait, just like I said here. And three, your portrait doesn't have to look real. Rather, your portrait should feel like you. Okay. The next slide is a list of resources. If you want to delve in a little deeper before you're in the classroom, in case questions come up, there's a link about Faith Ringgold. There's another one of Henry Matisse. There's Fauvism, and a link to self-portraits, just in case you want to brush up. After that, there is a recap email here that you can use, either you or your room parent or the classroom teacher, anyone who you think would be a good choice. Maybe check in with the teacher and see. You can use this template to send an email to all the families in your classroom, letting them know that you've just had this wonderful Spark experience and how they can follow up with their children at home about what they've learned in class. So we made it nice and easy for you. Let me just double check anything else. So I want to briefly mention, if this is your first Spark experience being a docent or an art helper, we have a Spark closet that's inside the multi-purpose room, and it's labeled Spark. It has a big sign on it. To access all the materials for Spark, you'll need to get into that closet. To get into that closet, first of all, you need to be fully volunteer cleared. So that means making sure that you've turned in a negative TB test. Most of you will probably know what I'm talking about, but if you don't know and you have questions, please email the spark@cherrychasepta.org email, and we can help give you written instructions on this. But you need to be fully TB cleared. You have to take that test and upload it into the district website, and then click a couple waiver buttons saying, yes, I accept the risks of entering a school property and I'm not going to sue them. And then you're fully cleared. Once you're fully cleared, you can go into the office, and Diana at the front desk, or anyone at the front desk, can give you this. You can ask them for the Spark key to the Spark closet, and they'll give you the key. You sign in on the little iPad, you go over to the closet, you get one of the two carts. There's a red cart and a blue cart. Either you or your teacher has signed up for one or the other cart. So double check in the Spark notes, and it will tell you. There's one document, I can't really show you on the computer right now, but there's one document that's the art cart sign up, and you can see which one your teacher has signed up for. Speaking of, if you have not signed up with your teacher yet, please reach out to them and see what date would be good for them, or check that art cart sign up. It might be that they've already signed up for a day and time that would work best for them, and it's in that document. If they've signed up for something that will not work for you, then just reach out to them, and I'm sure you guys can reschedule. It'll be okay. I forgot to mention when I was talking about what materials we're going to be using for this lesson. Sorry, a little bit backtrack. We have glue sticks, we have cardstock construction or construction paper, depending on what we have, and the children will be using scissors and pencils from their own desks. We don't have scissors on the art carts, but every child in the school is supposed to have scissors at their desk, so that should be okay. If you find out anything different, please again let us know. spark@cherrychasepta.org, and we can always buy some scissors. Let me think. I think that is mostly everything, but if I've missed anything, I will add to this video at the very end right now. Otherwise, I hope this felt like it was helpful information, especially if you couldn't attend the meeting in person. I always strongly recommend that you try to attend the meetings in person for these trainings, just because it's so fun to see everybody, honestly. And sometimes things pop up, like questions get asked that it's hard to replicate, like in this setting with a video recording. But I just want to end this video by saying thank you so much. Really, we cannot bring this program into the classroom without you, and it makes a huge difference. I can't tell you the number of kids who later saw me and said, "Oh, you're the Spark lady." That was really fun. I really loved it. It is one of the very few times that our children get to make art in school, and how can we have amazing artists like Faith Ringgold or Henry Matisse without them being able to feel like they are artists themselves? Like, this is where it starts. So thank you for creating a generation of artists, and let me know how I can make this better in the future. Thank you so much. Bye.